Um, I also want to introduce the concept of the housing market continuum, because this really starts to get into where the market functions well and where it needs some help from the public sector. So what you're seeing here is this is a spectrum from very low income housing on up to, at the top, luxury housing. The market does a great job of producing at the very top end of this spectrum, where over time, this luxury construction that the market has built will depreciate in value and might become more affordable to people at the lower end of the, or the middle end of the income spectrum, provided that the supply is keeping up with demand, right? So you've got vacancy rates that allow people to move around and enough supply to create housing choice. If all of that happens, a good portion of this sort of middle area here will be met by the market, but over time. And there's some places where construction costs are very high or land costs are very high where that simply can't happen, or if supply is not keeping up. And in those situations, the supported environment needs to overlap with the market environment. In Hood River, right now, based on those charts that we were just looking at a minute ago, less than 20% of the housing stock is affordable to those who make less than 100% of MFI. And median family income is a little bit of a misnomer, but generally you can think about it as the midpoint. About half of your people, half of your citizens are below 100% and about half are over. So you've got roughly half of the people households that live in the city who are trying to squeeze into 20% of the stock. And that's just not functional. So the supported environment in Hood River, as a result of that, to really meet the needs of these middle income folks, the bar has to extend upward. So takeaways from all of that, thank you for listening to me go through the Development 101. The market's going to take care of the top end. You don't really have to worry about that. I mean, you do absolutely have to have a supportive environment in place. You have to be thinking about placemaking and quality of life. You have to be thinking about getting the regulatory environment set up so that you're not creating barriers to construction, because total production really does matter. But for the most part, if you're thinking about proactive investment strategies, the market's going to take care of itself so long as you're not too much in the way. We all know Hood River's land constrained. I don't need to spend a lot of time talking about that, but that almost requires an increase in density to meet the needs of a growing population. And then in addition to that, the market is going to need some help to be able to take care of the middle to lower end.
Obviously, something's not going the way that we want it to. Do you have a feel for what exactly is broke?
I mean, I think part of what you're dealing with is the consequences of your success. I mean, in some ways you can think about it as it's working too well. Hood River has an amazing quality of place. I love going there. It has really beautiful views. It has an economy that's really thriving. It's going to continue to attract people. To me, it feels like what's not functioning or hasn't happened enough to date, maybe there hasn't been enough urgency or enough push for it yet, is really the focus on the intentional public investment to make sure that housing affordability is invested in. Because without that kind of investment and that sort of intentional movement, your trend is going to continue in the same direction that you're on right now. To a certain extent, I don't think you really want to harness the market or slow it down too much. I don't know that you can. I don't know that forces that are as big as that can really be slowed by the moves that you would make. Like, I often hear people say things like, well, if we just don't allow our zoning to increase, if we don't allow additional density, then nobody will be able to build houses and nobody will move here. But it just doesn't work that way, basically.
This chart before you is an aggregate of the 830 homes sold in Hood River over the past 3 years. And it takes into account the house sale price as related to unit size and the respective size of the dwellings. And so we're looking at this idea in this relationship of housing sale price as compared to size. And I've highlighted some of the issues when we started talking about MFI. the median family income for four, which in Hood River this year is $71,700. But what we start to look at and see is how quickly we get out of the 120% range when we get above 1,200 square feet. So that starts to reinforce this idea of the smaller dwelling units being really commensurate with the size, and in the idea of trying to promote a more affordable product also really has to do with scaling some of the size of the dwelling units that we do have. So as you can see in this chart, as we get over 2 bedrooms, which is averages about 1,260 square feet on here, we really see this jump from 126% MFI to 150. And that actually starts to go back to relate to some of the unit size caps that we start thinking about in the middle housing code, trying to provide or focus those units in our market to those 120, 125% MFI ranges. Again, with the idea that we see this tension between larger dwelling units and the goal of promoting affordability.
Justin?
Again, yes.
I just wanted to point out on that chart too, that what I noticed is that, this is 3 years worth of data, and the 2 largest categories are 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom houses. That's the largest numbers that have sold. So that's what's being built on the open market. So, it's kind of that, this is not affordable housing that we're making. This is the missing middle. It's not subsidized, but if we can make it some less expensive and some smaller, there'll be a lot more opportunities for people to move up and move in that don't have those opportunities right now.
Development community, and I think Bill mentioned anything's going to sell. I think that's the issue. It's just making sure that, in some ways not having such a big gap between different products the development community never embraces this or never takes an opportunity to do it, regardless of what it comes in at, because it's going to come in expensive. It's only more affordable by way of size. It certainly, I wouldn't expect it to be affordable with a capital A. This is going to be a market-driven product, and I think we have to temper some expectations based on that. This is going to be a market-delivered product. So that is, I wouldn't want to fool you into thinking otherwise.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to deliver us 80 to 120 AMI product itself. Yes.
Right, itself in it without something else. It's, I think we're under a pretty clear expectation that code alone is not going to deliver an affordable housing product. It's going to have to be coupled with other things.
The place where I am a little, I'd say the lack of comfort for me in that particular point is I feel like it would be nice to have, and maybe it's just we just give up that, but it'd be nice to have the building community take this code set and actually try and do something with it and see that it has a positive outcome. Because I'd hate to, we're doing this a little bit in a vacuum, and then we're getting some feedback from those guys, but it'd be nice to actually take a couple lots and stick this on it and see what they would build and see if the economics of it all work before we say council, we can put our stamp of approval on this. I don't know what other people's comments are. Anyone else?
I think that's a good idea because it may delay the whole process at most a month, it sounds like. Is that the time frame I'm thinking of? Is that realistic? Because I know the feedback that we've gotten from people, I've really depend a lot on those developer comments we've gotten so far. So just confirmation of how this works would be great.
Yes, I would rather them spend 3 months test fitting than us spend 3 months talking.
Is I'd like to see I think it would be useful for council to be able to make a decision on this if they have some economic information that goes along with it. So I'm comfortable making a recommendation to push this on, but I want a package to go to council that says, based on this code, developer XYZ over here could build something like this. This is what the cost of the units would be. This is what the cost of the land would be. This is what the sale price of the units would be here.
My only issue, and not to open up a can of worms at 8:21 at night, is that, I wonder if, I'm not going to say any of this is economically viable, but, I think we have this idea that we want to try and achieve some type of affordability. And I'm worried that, we can't get there alone through the planning commission, right? There's no amount of numbers of doors that we're going to put on a 5,000 square foot site that's going to make it meet some level of affordability. And so by doing those test fits, they might look at it and say, well, it doesn't pencil out, which is maybe good to know now. But from the city commission, city council, I mean, there's got to be some ownership that they would take, right, in terms of taxes or fees or in lieu or this or that, right, that helps us get to where we want to get to. And so, by asking the community, the developer community to kind of beat this up, I worry the answer is going to be, it doesn't pencil out. and then, we still need to go to council and say, you need to help.
Yeah, I think one of the early things that we ask, and I think we've had some feedback on the development community, and I think Bill mentioned anything's going to sell. I think that's the issue. It's just making sure that, in some ways not having such a big gap between different products that the development community never embraces this or never takes an opportunity to do it, regardless of what it comes in at, because it's going to come in expensive. It's only more affordable by way of size. It certainly, I wouldn't expect it to be affordable with a capital A. This is going to be a market driven product. And I think we have to temper some expectations based on that. This is going to be a market delivered product. So that is, I wouldn't want to fool you into thinking otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to deliver us 80 to 120 AMI product itself. Yes. Right.
Itself in it without something else. It's, I think we're under a pretty clear expectation that code alone is not going to deliver an affordable housing product. It's going to have to be coupled with other things. So I'm comfortable with the recommendation based on, I feel like I'm probably less comfortable with the predictability factor and probably all the wiggle room and flexibility we have. So see, that's on my end, is how do I make sure that we don't over flexible this and we don't have predictable outcome. Somebody's going to make something to work with this, because I think the sidebars are so, it is such flexibility. The landscape, the open space area being reduced to almost setbacks. We're back to building height. We've allowed a density increase in a lot of ways. I don't see how you could not do something with it.